To be a big day for the future of New Jersey, but lawmakers had other plans. They decided to indefinitely postpone a vote on the legalization of recreational marijuana. Governor Phil Murphy is holding a press conference now to address today's events. Let's listen in.
Ditto and community leaders to garner the votes necessary to pass the most progressive and impactful adult use marijuana legalization and expungement law in the entire United States of America. I am grateful to all the legislators who joined us in this historic effort, not only to the Senate President and the Speaker, but to the sponsors, many of whom are here today. Senator Nick Scuteri to my right, Senator Sandra Cunningham, who's not with us, Assembly members Annette Quijano, Jamel Holley, Brittany Timberlake, Angela McKnight, all of whom are here, and Benji Wimberly, who is not with us. History is rarely made at the first attempt. History is often a bumpy road of fits and starts, of progress and of setbacks. But eventually, barriers do fall to those who are committed to breaking them down. Certainly, I am disappointed, but we are not defeated. I am committed, I know we are all committed, to continuing the discussions with lawmakers that we began over these past few months. I know, as the Senate President and the Speaker know, as supportive lawmakers know, and as the broad coalition of community and faith leaders know, that the facts are on our side. The fact is that our current drug policy regime has stifled opportunity and economic development. It has helped us to achieve the dubious distinction of having the widest black-white disparity in incarceration in the entire United States, a staggering 12-to-1. The fact is, given what we know now, this week alone, more than 600 New Jerseyans, the majority of whom will be persons of color, will be arrested for marijuana possession and will have a criminal record that will hurt their prospects of getting a job or getting an education. The countless millions of dollars diverted into the criminal justice system would be better invested in health care and housing, in child care and after-school programs, and in community-based anti-violence efforts, among so many other worthy programs. The fact is that our urban neighborhoods have been hardest hit by the misguided war on drugs. We cannot forget that society looked the other way as the opioid epidemic devastated our urban centers long before it made mainstream headlines. The Senate President, the Speaker, and I, along with countless others, have worked in partnership and compromise on a bill that will move the cause of social justice forward. I've said many times before that I did not get to my position in support of legalizing adult use marijuana overnight. But through time and careful reflections and many conversations, which began with this man right here, I got here. Change is never easy. It takes hard work, and sometimes it takes letting go of long-held opinions. Justice may be delayed, but justice will not be denied. Again, I thank the Senate President and Speaker for their partnership, their leadership, and their hard work. I know we all remain committed to passing this bill and making our state a national model for justice and opportunity, because ultimately this is the right thing to do for New Jersey. And we know the people of New Jersey are on our side. And because of that commitment, I know that we will make history. With that, I'd love to ask the Senate President and then the Speaker to say a few words. Thank you all.
Thanks, Governor.
Come on, Steve.
I agree with the Governor, and I want to thank the Governor first and foremost, because I know how hard the effort and the time he put into this bill. I know because of all the people that called me that you spoke to. And when he said he ran out of legislators, I think he did. I think he did call a couple Pennsylvania people. But at the end of the day, listen, big things like this don't always come easy. They normally come hard, and they normally come with very, very tight margins. A perfect example today was we finally passed death with dignity. It was something I was passionate about for years. And the Senate couldn't pass it after the Assembly had passed it twice. But we got there. And with the Governor's commitment, the Speaker's commitment, and Senator Scuteri, who's been the champion of this issue for quite some time, I know we're doing the right thing by legalizing adult use marijuana. I know it's the right thing to do, and I believe in it. And, you know, when people say, well, what about this one? What about it's an issue that some people have to be worked on to get to the point. But we're not going to give up the effort because I said earlier, we might have lost a fight, but we're absolutely going to win the war at the end of the day.
Amen.
This is one we believe in, we're working together on, and I am committed with the governor, the speaker, Senator Scuteri, and the other sponsors to get this over the finish line, because what's going on in this country is not right, especially in this state. Too many people are being arrested, and too many people are not getting justice. So, Governor, we're going to continue to work. My house came up short. It's not the first time, but at the end of the day, as long as we get it done. Thank you.
Thanks, man.
Thanks.
I appreciate that. Senator Cunningham, thank you for joining. I just spoke about you glowingly behind your back. It was all good. So thank you for being one of the sponsors and leaders in this. With that, we'd love to bring up the Speaker of the General Assembly, Craig Coughlin.
Thank you. Thank you, Governor. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks so much for coming out. This was a big bill. It sought to do immense things. It sought to seek social justice for many people who had been denied that for so long. It sought to create a new industry. It sought to change the status quo, which is never an easy task. So I want to thank all of the people who worked so tirelessly on the bill. The sponsors you see behind me, the hundreds of hours that staff put into this. And I want to thank the governor and the Senate president for working so closely together on this with me as we try to advance this bill forward and to make real change in the state of New Jersey. We still have a ways to go, apparently, but it's not a goal that we can't achieve. I'm committed to making sure that we continue to work to get this bill over the goal line, because I think it accomplishes the things that we set out to do. And I think the benefit to the state of New Jersey will be real and important. And so to everyone who had a hand in trying to move the bill forward today, I thank you. For those who didn't, we'll get back to work and we'll figure out what it is that we need to do, and as long as we maintain those same important principles that have guided us in this process so far. So we're going to make a difference. We're going to change things. If you're not in favor of doing this, then somebody has to give me a better plan or tell me that they're in favor of the status quo. I think we will. And I know that we're all committed to work as we go forward. Now, what we're going to do next, well, I think we're probably going to sit down and we'll start to get to work on figuring out the next steps. But this was a true partnership among the three of us. And the sponsors did yeoman's work on this. So we've accomplished something today. We didn't get a touchdown, but we moved the ball to the 1-yard line. And I'm confident in the weeks and months ahead that we're going to achieve just that. So thanks everybody for coming out.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Backstage with an extraordinary group of sponsors. We drew straws, and speaking, I think, on behalf of the sponsors, although we don't want to cut anyone else off who wants to say something, I'd love to bring up a guy who's been passionate about this for a long time, Senator Nick Scuteri. Nick.
Thank you, Governor. Just briefly, I want to thank everyone here, particularly the governor and the Senate president and the speaker. With the commitment that you just heard from them, I have no doubt that we will get this passed. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when. And these individuals and the ones behind them are enlightened individuals, I like to say, people that have come to this decision after an intellectually honest debate on what we should do about drug policy in the state of New Jersey. The governor of the state of New Jersey did not come to me as an advocate of legalizing marijuana. The first lunch I ever had with him, I brought the topic up, and he was not committed to doing it at that point in time. But and that goes for the Senate president and the speaker as well. I spoke to the Senate president about this for years until I dragged him out to Colorado, and he saw firsthand the benefits and studied the issue as well as Speaker Coughlin. So with them and with these other sponsors, I'm confident whether that we will get this done. It's just not a question of if, it's a question of when. And the final thing I'll say is, when people asked me over the weekend, I got so many press inquiries, are you going to have the votes? And my answer to them is, we should have the votes. We may not have them today, but we should have them. And if people are honest and have an honest dialogue and do the appropriate homework with respect to these issues, there is no other logical conclusion that what we are doing in the state of New Jersey and nationally has been a failed system, and we need to improve on it. And I believe that this bill that we've produced is an excellent piece of legislation. We can always improve upon it. I'm committed to working with the sponsors and the leadership here to continue to do that, to get the votes necessary to get a passed bill in the very near future. Thank you, Governor.
Thanks, Nick. Appreciate it. I think we're going to take a few questions. I said this up front. I think we've all said this, but not only this extraordinary group and the teams behind them, but the activists who were extraordinary and big supporters of this, and the faith leaders. I've spoken and exchanged notes with a couple of dozen over the past several hours, and the great news is everybody is staying in the fight in a big way. Please.
It's a comment and a question. You know, you say this is all about social justice, but you know, we're not hearing from any of the Black or brown legislators who have been, you know, this has been their issue.
Fair point.
Heard before white men.
Yep.
And I understand your leaders. What other things can you do to stop that disparity? Is marijuana, legalizing marijuana the only way to do that? Or what efforts are you making to make sure that disparity is?
Well, it's not the, first of all, to your first point, it's a very fair point, and I would invite any of the other sponsors to come up and say a few words, period. We're taking lots of steps, and so we reconstituted the Criminal Sentencing Commission within days of my becoming governor, with Deborah Poritz and Giles Shipp, looking long and hard at that, putting more money into reentry. Part of the big animating reason to put money into education, including things like community college, is to give folks another compelling path. So there are lots of different steps that we're taking. There's no one that is a magic wand that shrinks the inequities in our criminal justice system overnight, but there are a series of steps. This is probably the biggest, though. When you look at the reason why we have the disparities that we have, low-end drug possession is far and away the biggest contributing factor. But to your first point, I want to ask Senator Cunningham to come on up. I think it's a very fair point. Please.
Thank you. First of all, you know that marijuana arrest has devastated our community. With this legislation, we're trying to handle people who have been incarcerated or arrested for marijuana. We're making it a priority to get those people released and to prevent that from continuing to happen. Something else that this governor has done in terms of educating people in our community. One of the problems, of course, is not having a job, perhaps not having training. By allowing us to offer TAG to people who are incarcerated, so that they can go to college while they're incarcerated. So I think that this governor is taking many steps in trying to find a way to bring the disparity gap closer together. And I think those are a couple of ways that he's done that.
Thank you, Senator. I appreciate that. Thank you. Charlie.
You expressed disdain last week towards transactional politics. After you've made all these calls over the past week, have you had a change of heart? Have you cut deals with people?
It was an extraordinary process, I have to say, and we came very, very close, I think it's fair to say, and we will get there. And they led to some of the best conversations. Contrary to what you may have read, I actually speak to legislators all the time, but these were among the deepest conversations. And at every turn, I was reminded of how unacceptable the status quo is. So nobody, I didn't have one conversation with anybody where they said, gosh, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? Where I thought, you know what, that isn't a good thing to do for the state of New Jersey. So it was scores and scores and scores of conversations that were really good, really deep. I commend legislators from both sides of the aisle, I might add, for wanting to do the right thing, even if they couldn't get there themselves. Please.
What is a realistic time frame for getting this back in front of the legislature?
I'll give you a general answer, but these guys run their respective caucuses, and I owe them that opportunity. The status quo is unacceptable. I've already mentioned 600 people will get arrested this week for marijuana possession. We all agree with that. The sooner is better than later. I think there's an overwhelming sense sooner is better than later. I'll defer to you guys as to what that means. Is that good?
Are we talking at least the fall before this could happen?
It could happen sooner.
We hope it can happen sooner than that, right?
Yeah, I think
When we get to 21 and 41,
it'll be on.
you'll see it again.
Yeah. Please.
You know, now that you see what an uphill battle this is in the legislature, and we know that public polling shows most people in New Jersey are in favor of this, and you're saying what an important thing this is, why not at this point put it to
This is a more courageous route, and I think the three of us think we can get it done legislatively. Now, as I've said before, and you've heard me say this, Vermont is the only other state that's proven that point. The 9 other states in the District of Columbia have gone with a referendum, and you're absolutely right. We know the public overwhelmingly supports this. I think we believe we can get it done legislatively, and secondly, it's a better result if we can get it done legislatively.
On the medical marijuana, you mentioned
You go there.
Yeah, it's better government.
You mentioned last week that if this doesn't work Monday, that you were going to move ahead on the medical marijuana
Yes.
extension. Could you talk about that?
I've got nothing. I assumed someone would ask me that, so thank you for keeping me honest. I don't have a good answer for you yet. We're looking at that literally right now. So that's something that we'll be back to you on, my guess is in the next day or two.
Governor, what sort of changes do you think you'll have to make to this bill to get it over the finish line?
I think it's too early to tell. I think we need to do a postmortem. Is that fair to say, guys? Post-op. Post-op, pardon me. Someone over here had some, please.
What is the likelihood of splitting up the bills now? Because it's 3 they didn't go past. I'm seeing Senator Sweeney shaking his head.
I think we all want to keep it together, don't we?
I told my members all 3 are together. They're married, they're tie-barred. I can't speak for the Assembly, but all along, that's what we've been saying.
Yeah, we've looked at it. I've looked at it as a package from the beginning. So we're gonna keep that together. I think it's until we decide on the next step. It's not appropriate for us to be considering anything other than.
Follow up, because we have heard from some of the senators saying that they would support expungement, but not full adult use.
Here's
decriminalization even.
I'll just give you my, not a senator or a member of the Assembly, just this. So if you just decriminalize it, you leave it in the hands of the bad guys. If you just expunge, you're going to have 600 more people arrested this week. Yeah. So we need to do all of this. Please.
Have you heard feedback from the no voters today about what was the factor that held them back from becoming a yes vote, and will you use that as a starting point to amend the bill again?
Yeah, so it's not as though they went away and came back and said, this is why we voted no, because we were talking to these folks, all of us, real time. So we have some sense of what the issues were that stuck in people's throats, and that's going to be part of our post-op.
No.
Governor, any thought to using your executive authority for pardons or clemency for those who are currently incarcerated for marijuana-related offenses?
Haven't thought about it. I'm hoping we can get there as a team legislatively. Please. Charlie, before I will come back to you, I just want to make sure anybody who hasn't asked a question yet has. Please. Brian.
On that question, when you talk to these senators, what makes you think that some of them can come around and become the 21st vote that the Senate President is talking about?
Again, I don't want to speak for everybody up here, but there does feel like if a couple of things tweaked one way or another, perhaps, and again, it's too early to say what that is. Secondly, passage of time. There are other examples of this where the passage of time, even a short amount of time, makes a difference. And we saw that with other realities. We saw that has been discussed in the press a lot this week with gay marriage, with the whole LGBTQ agenda. I think gun safety is in the middle of that inflection point. I hope it is, please God, in America. I know we're through it in New Jersey, but so again, I remain an optimist. Tom.
Sort of question for all 3 of you.
Yep.
How has this whole exercise affected your working relationship?
We're still speaking. It's been good. It's been a very good exercise. Lots of communication, daily calls, multiple calls, certain days like today, comparing targets. I think it's been a good one.
I think so, yeah. It took us a long time to get this bill because it was this package of bills. You got to realize there was a lot of work. It took us months to get this. I've been in the legislature for a few years now, and there's not a bill that I spent more time on personally in meetings with the governor and the sponsors than this bill. And Tom, it showed for everyone out there that the 3 of us do know how to work together, and we do work together. And there was many calls that we've traded early, late, and the speaker late last night, right?
Yeah, well, I'm a late night guy. But just as we did with the minimum wage bill, Tom, I think when you enter into these, and they're challenges, when you enter into a challenge together and you discover that you're truly working together to a common purpose, I think that's just a positive thing that has benefits long term.
So you're going to back the millionaire's tax?
I'm so glad you asked that.
What? What? I didn't hear that.
Yeah, exactly.
Whoa,
I would love. Brittany, Angela, Annette?
Said we could work
Jamel, anything
together.
you
I
wanna
didn't say
say?
we capitulate.
You want to jump in? Jamel, you want to say anything?
It's
on that?
his press.
You good? You're good, okay. No, hold on one sec, please.
How was it that this, the moment you were making that decision this morning not to hold the vote, how disappointing was that?
That was ours.
Yeah, it was disappointing, but it wasn't, I don't think it was shocking.
We look, the question was more in the Senate than the Assembly. And one day you're at 20, the next day you're at 16, the next day you're at 17. It was kind of like whack-a-mole, trying to figure it out. But at the end, we had to take a vote, and I wasn't going to put it up with 17 votes, because that means it's a defeat. This wasn't a defeat, it's a pause. And now we're going to go back and look at it. We're going to do a post-op. We'll figure out what we can change to change minds. The one great thing is the governor spoke to a lot of legislators, as we did. And we know there are issues where they have and what they don't have. And if we make changes to keep the core principles and get the job done, then we're going to do it.
Amen.
But what's disappointing, if I may, what's disappointing a little bit is that I think we put together a terrific product. I think that advocacy groups from across the country will tell you this is probably the finest piece of legislation they've seen with regard to that. That was the product of an awful lot of hard work by an awful lot of dedicated people. And so you feel there's a disappointment that we weren't going to be able to move forward today, right? Because you worked to the deadline. It was game day. So there's that. But there's still optimism that we're going to be able to get.
We will get there. There's too many reasons to get there. Michael.
Governor, if this becomes a topic of discussion in June at the same time as trying to do the state budget, do you see that as a complication or even an opportunity?
I would just say, I bet on behalf of all of us, I'd rather not speculate. We want to get this done. The status quo is unacceptable, particularly the social injustices. Sooner is better than later. We'll figure out what that means as we go forward. Anybody else who's not yet asked? Charlie, I promise to come back to you.
First, for Senate President, we've heard a lot about your iron worker, like ripping the caucus there. How come
you actually believe that?
Iron workers ripping the caucus?
Because this vote, Charlie, in all honesty, this vote's not like a regular vote. It's like marriage equality was a very tough, difficult vote that was life-changing. Death with dignity today is something that I wanted to get done for years. The Assembly voted out twice, and today was finally the opportunity for us to get it done. And I was thrilled seeing the governor's press release saying this is going to be the law of the land. So when you're doing big things, Charlie, it takes time. And this is not an easy task. And I don't think anyone should say that the governor, the speaker, or I failed, because we're not done. If we give up and walk away, that's one thing, but we're not. And we're just going to redouble our efforts. And again, we learned a lot. We learned a whole lot in this process.
But just to follow on that real quick, I mean, you have said before that New Jersey is really a moderate state, not a liberal state. Is that what you're really running up against here, the reality of that this state really is not ready for it?
No, Charlie, what we're running up against is this is a very difficult bill. The only state in the country, the only state in the country that did it legislatively was Vermont. Every other state got there through a constitutional amendment. And I know if we put it on the ballot, it'll pass overwhelmingly. I don't think it would do in this election cycle where no one's voting, but in a presidential, it would pass overwhelmingly. We made the decision, we made the tough choice, everyone up here, that we were going to do it, we think, the best way. Not that the other way isn't, but the best way.
I would also say the polls, to Steve's point, overwhelmingly suggest this. Folks want to see this. Please.
Question for Assemblyman Holly. During one of those preliminary hearings,
See you, Michael.
I heard you get extremely passionate about some of the statistics and misconceptions
Come on in.
that you felt worked against this bill. And not to name names, but in speaking to some of the no votes over the last 2 weeks, I heard them use those misconceptions as a justification for voting no. I just wanted to get your reactions to that, and if you've heard those things floating around still as well, and how do you plan to combat that?
I mean, we're just going to continue to move forward. The governor mentioned that 600 people every single week are being arrested for low-level possessions of marijuana. Unfortunately, those individuals happen to look like me, men of color. And the longer we wait, the longer the lives will be affected. And we're going to continue to keep pushing. It's more so education. We have to continue to educate our members. We have to continue to allow them to voice some of their concerns and work through it. Hey, listen, we started this years ago. I am very happy about where we are at today. Did we get a home run today? No. But did we get very far from where we are at? Yes, absolutely. So we're going to just continue the pace, continue the momentum, and the commitment is here. And so as we continue to do the post-op of what we need to do moving forward, I'm very confident that we'll come to a good resolution and we'll get this back in front of our legislators to take a good vote.
We're going to do one more. Michael Aaron just left, which we've offended Michael apparently, so we're going to shut this down with one last question.
There's another historic bill up today that's probably headed to your desk very soon, and that's the statute of limitations bill. And I wanted to know if you've had feelings about that. What are your thoughts?
I think I'm going to take a pass on that for the time being. I've said generally my broad support for the direction it's going. As the Senate President mentioned, that I have in fact put out a press release on the death with dignity, that I will sign that, and it's a tough one for all of us, right? It's particularly haven't gone beyond what I've said. I want to thank everybody. I want to begin by thanking the Senate President, the Speaker, the sponsors, senators. Thank you both, Assembly men and women, for your leadership. To the extraordinary activists, we will stay in the fight, and we will ultimately get there. To the faith leaders, to everybody out there who wants to see the status quo put in our rearview mirror and get to a better place in New Jersey, just know that we're still on it, and we will get there. Many thanks.
Thanks, Governor.
Good job, man.
We'll get it done.
We've been listening to Governor Phil Murphy on the decision by New Jersey lawmakers to postpone a vote on the legalization of recreational marijuana. We'll continue to bring you updates on this story right here on CBS in New York, and we'll be right back.